I think what we have to do is bring out the use cases that we talk about. So like we say the Web3 technologies are better, but why are they better? And then creating the user experiences that actually show that and let people experience why it's better.
And I think the thing about our current financial system is
Hi, everyone. On today's episode, NEWFORUM is delighted to have as a guest the brilliant, confident master of chaos, Réka, co-founder of Guild, the infrastructure and go-to place when it comes to platformless memberships. So we will be talking about Réka's and Guild's journey, the evolution of the social part of crypto, which includes collaboration and community building. So what works and what doesn't work. Réka, welcome to NEWFORUM, and let's start if you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So you've mentioned in the past that you got introduced to crypto while volunteering in Switzerland in 2016. So can you take us through your journey? What caught your interest? How did you get hooked into crypto? And what led to the creation of Guild?
It was Sweden. Just but it's fine.
My bad.
Very thorough background either way. So initially, first, of course, I got into more DeFi and the like revolutionizing of finance and the frustration of a bank transaction taking 4 business days. And, just even if we only solved that with DeFi as I first understood it, I was thrilled to be part of that. And then I got a deeper dive into the social aspects and DAOs and Friends with Benefits and C Club and Forefront and whatever was popping at that time around 2019, 2020. And what really, really stood out to me is how like communities and organizations had this next level aspect to what I was used to online before, including the token question with Friends with Benefits, for example. I thought that was super slick how they handled that. And C Club later also launched Club Token. So that was very intriguing. And then later, as I ventured more into the creator economy, as the whole space developed, obviously use cases where we essentially don't rely on algorithms and platforms anymore in the future, and the very direct connection with audience and creator and the smaller or bigger, sizes of not just communities, but like the subs of the communities and how they interact with each other and the artist and anyone who just wanders on these communities is super, super intriguing. And of course, crossing these boundaries of platforms, that was really exciting to me still. And that's a lot of what we do with Guild. So how it started is we initially saw the issue of, okay, we have tokens in communities and we function pretty well and better, or supposedly in a cooler way than traditional communities, but connecting the actual tech for connecting people based on these very self-custodial assets was not really good and not automated at all. So we wanted to take a little bit of a spin on that 2 years ago. And from then, we built openly with our community and the communities and guilds that use us. And we ended up right now being more the automated membership platform for managing memberships and setting up these social structures around on and off chain requirements, creating these portable groups across platforms, which is super, super cool to work with this. I feel like everything comes together in here. And with this, a natural progression was to establish the guild model as well, which is the requirements, roles, and rewards structure, that everything in Guild works that way. And I think in the universe, if you think about it hard enough, everything works that way as well. And this model allows us to be differentiated from many other tools in the community space that may grant you rewards after completing certain tasks, because the role aspect in the middle is fully missing. And that's a very unique factor at Guild that allows you to actually own more of that relationship and transport it across platforms as well, which is the true juice, I think, in all of these. And obviously that allows us to have many, many different use cases in community automation as well.
Thank you so much, Réka. What would be the starting point for a new user that wants kind of to discover the juice of Guild? Like from someone that would not know juice, where should they start, whether they're a project or an individual?
I think the coolest way is just making a guild. It's free. I think that's one of the most fun user experiences out there right now is having just a Telegram group, which is the simplest. You don't need to establish a server. You put in like 2 friends, you set up the requirements. It's kind of like you have little cards with Lego pieces on it almost. I think that's a really easy and straightforward way to get used to start using it. We obviously have videos and guides for it and everything, but I think experiencing this unlock by doing is very, very beneficial and cool.
What are you the most proud about or the most excited about, in the last 2 years when it comes to Guild? Is it like the Guild model as a whole? Is it the community you built? Or is it like specific guilds that were created and you're like, wow, we got these people on board?
I think all of them, of course. But I could highlight a few communities that I think are super exciting, and they've built guilds that I think like showcase to others who might just get started how to use this really well and how to like do community well, even if you're a bigger project or a smaller project. One of them is, for example, Chainlink. They have this very interesting setup of identifying members from different countries and different ecosystems. They have roles for all of them. So if you're a person from India or Europe or different countries within that or Americas, they have different roles for those folks. And of course, for different ecosystems as well. So if you hold some Polygon, if you hold some Optimism token, they have different roles. And that's automatically you're identified as where you're coming from or what's your internet history. And I think that is something that we have not seen in action a lot. And that's super exciting for like identifying your audience, essentially. Like that's baseline, I think that it's really interesting to know. They also have roles for different participants for activations, including like marketing people and also developers. And it's really, they identify them automatically who participated in these actions already. So they know if there's another opportunity like this, who to communicate to directly, which is wonderful. Like it makes things so much simpler.
Because you mentioned like identify your audience, like how easy or complicated do you think it is to do that in a Web3 versus in Web2? Because in Web2, there you have the analytics, you have the marketing. We do have that in Web3, but it's a bit harder to target your audience. So how does Chainlink proceed when they're building these roles? Do they communicate with you and they ask you, okay, what do you think we should do? Or you just give them the tools and they're just like, okay, let's go, let's try it out.
Both. In their case, we do have contact, but most guilds actually just come and it's fully self-served and they just set it up there on their own. In their case, I think some of that we did talk with them, but most of them, they just found out what they wanted to do and they just did it. It's really interesting.
Going back to community building, which is kind of one of the core features also of Guild. When you look at communities like you mentioned, Seed Club, Boys Club, Friends with Benefits, how do you explain their success? I mean, first of all, what are your initial thoughts as you saw them like emerge and just get bigger and bigger? And also, how do you explain the success?
I think for the three of them, it's a little different, but they do have something that's common for all three. And that is that they establish the full culture and like communication style and background story and kind of like an identity for members around the community. And I think that's something that a lot of other projects are lacking. So that's definitely a commonality that contributed to why they're still successful even years later. Boys Club's the newest one, but Friends with Benefits and Seed Clubs, they're multiple years old, which in crypto is significant history.
But like dog years.
Yes, it's like dog years. What difference I think there is, for example, Friends with Benefits, they like really soon tokenize themselves. And that was, I think, the first like major multicultural, but in like a what are you into cultures type of sense, social token use case that we saw that actually was your ticket to entry. And I know it was very controversial at some point when it was like $8,000 to get in because the token was so high. But otherwise, I think that's a really significant point in Web3 that they take this stance of being one of the first like largest use case of what we saw for social tokens. And I really missed that actually. I think that line of thinking was a super interesting one that we should have kept going more into. For Boys Club, they're doing a really good job of combining in person and online. And they're, I think, really heavy on like the vibe curation or essentially like creating their own community identity of who belongs to Boys Club. Even though it's named Boys Club, it's not just, it's not made up of just boys, but still it kind of like the name already feeds into the meme. And that's really, really strong for a cohesive cross-platform online and in-person identity for a person who wants to join and be a part of this, which is really their strong suit.
The way I see it is that they're kind of like the blue chip communities currently, right? Do you think that we'll be seeing the emergence of more communities like this? Like the similar to an NFT collection, right? You have hundreds of thousands out there, but you really have like a top 10, top 20 that is really established. So in the coming years, do you see like a proliferation of these types of communities? Or do you see just more like one or two extra communities similar to Boys Club and C Club, but will really have 5, 6 that are like the representatives of the Web3 space with their different cultures?
I think that's what I thought when, like, for example, Boys Club wasn't in the scene and it was like all the hype was around friends with benefits type of years. But it changes really fast. And I think we're going to see many, many, many of these. And there's always going to be a few that stand out. I think that's just the nature of things, but there won't be like such a secluded small circle of communities. I think they're like people are going to take ownership more of what they want to create. And it's going to become easier to do this as well with the tooling, with everything. I always say that there's like the improvement of like the human interactions and the human needs of what we want to create and how we want to work and be in this space. And there's the technical innovations that come with that.
Since we just spoke about kind of culture of like communities, is there a way to kind of define the culture of Guild? Like what would you say is the kind of vibe of the community overall? Like just having fun, chaos, builders, like what do you like about the community of Guild?
We have I think a great balance of, so what I always try to do is like balance growth and then like narrowing down and finding who we are. Right now we're in the narrowing down, finding who we are phase, even though we're growing like crazy right now because of the pin campaign that we're doing. Our culture is more, we're a bunch of builders, like our Guild team specifically, and then, you know, how the community builder is, that's how the community is going to be. And so naturally our community is at a core of it is a bunch of community and product builders in the space. That's like our core part. And not just technical versions, but also the community managers who like come up with the newest innovations or like perfect existing techniques and strategies for a community. And it's a really interesting set of people. And I love like creating more and more value for ourselves in a way that it's, you know, I think the best direction you can always take with a community, if it's for a project or for your personal use or just for funsies, is to always like start with, you know, it's going to come out of you anyway, and you're going to do this for years. So what you would enjoy, and then also how can you give the most to everyone who comes and spends time and attention on whatever you're doing. So that I think is a good policy to keep in mind. And for us, that stayed the value. And I got a compliment recently. A person joined our Discord server that it's like such a non-toxic place. Like even though it's pretty big now, it's above 100,000 people, but it's such a, like there's no shit talking or, you know, like being mean to each other. Even though it's sometimes it's a little spammy with GMs, it's still like a wholesome space.
Nothing wrong with that. So, I mean, this is a bit of, we don't have a crystal ball, but what would make you say at the end of 2023 or early 2024, this was a successful year for Guild and for myself? Like, you have kind of milestones or goals, or you just go with the flow and then you'll kind of evaluate at the end of the year?
I always try to think of like a yearly goal or like something, at least one pointer, but I like to go with quarterly, like since the space changes so fast, I don't think you can see further than 3 months usually. So I try to plan that way. But what would make me think that Guild was successful at the end of the year is if we continue to evolve our user experience into being even better. Because I feel like we focused so much on integrations last year, we kind of started not evolving the UX as much, which was a really big priority for us as we started out. So that for sure. On the community side, I'd love to become more of an educational hub for building and using Guild to the max, because we built the infra underneath in a way that there's so many things you can do that I really want to be better at, like helping others maximize everything that they're doing with it.
What are your thoughts when it comes to kind of like education in the space? I mean, we've seen all sorts of to earn models, right? Play to earn, dance to earn, etc. But what do you think about the kind of learn to earn model? And we see this mostly, you know, kind of those like developer communities where you have people that are actually committed and not there just to make a fast grab of money, right? So what do you think are the best ways to kind of onboard? It's a bit of the cliche question that we always say all the time, onboard the next billion, right? But is the UI UX one of the most important things? Is it simplifying, the language in the space? I think I've heard you say in the past that we have too much technical jargon. So what are your thoughts on like how Guild can kind of be like the landmark place where you're like, hey, you're from Web2, just come discover us and we'll make it simple for you?
In my opinion, still the language remains. I think that's a basic for changing that. But in my opinion, how we attract and retain more people who maybe not even consciously, they don't think like, I'm going to get into the Web3 space. I think that's a very, very small amount of people that actually think that ever in their life. And I don't think we're going to increase that specifically. I think what we have to do is bring out the use cases that we talk about. So like we say the Web3 technologies are better, but why are they better? And then creating the user experiences that actually show that and let people experience why it's better. And with Guild, I think that's what we're absolutely going for. So like eventually, like you should not be worried if this runs on X blockchain or the data is stored on this decentralized system or this one. Like the normal user should not care. Like in a normal, like I don't know what Facebook runs on. I mean, I do, but like I wouldn't know if I didn't work in tech what it runs on. I just use it and it's great, or it used to be. Yeah. So I think we have to rethink that because the tech is great. I'm not saying we should stop talking about it because we're innovating every day as a collective in this ecosystem and space. But if we want to continue, and those of us who are building consumer facing applications, we don't have to say explicitly like very technical heavy things and just give the experience. And of course, if there's like security or privacy things that they should be notified of, but like just give them the experience that's actually worth why we're saying this is much better than what it used to be. That's it.
So do you think we should almost have a more Web2 approach in Web3 kind of startups and companies where you really have kind of like product team working with the tech team? Because I could be wrong, but I do feel like even if you look at hackathons or in teams in general, you have like the tech team working together and they're building the tech. And then you have the creators that like kind of come behind and are like, oh, wait, we could do this, and have like 100 of ideas, right? And you kind of need to put them all together. So what do you think is the best way, you mentioned earlier, to balance this, thinking of the user experience, but also like pushing the tech forward? Because that's also one of the biggest advantages of Web3 is that you have this tech that can improve things, right?
Yeah, it's just stronger collaboration between teams. So like not just within a team, but between teams that are building different things. So there's teams that are really strong on the user facing side and the product side and the experience side. And there's teams that are really strong on creating infrastructure, storage systems, networks, all these protocols that are great. We just have to tie them together better. And there's like so much room for more collaboration and also between the different tech teams as well, so they can provide more composable, better solutions for the consumer-facing product teams to build on. Like that, like working together, I think is where we already see a lot of things happening wonderfully, but that's where we're going to see a lot of unlock in the future as well.
And with obviously it can be missed, like with the rise of artificial intelligence, how do you see it impacting digital interactions for social crypto? And what potential impact could it have on even the future of Guild? Like, have you started looking at it and being like, we could maybe play around with it?
So in general, for like socials and online interactions, I think there's like, I'm very conflicted. There's like two things. It either makes everything so much easier, and I have like a personal assistant that does everything for me, like saying one sentence, or like knows my habits and completes tasks for me and talks with people on my behalf in my style, kind of what I want to say anyway, and then reports back to me or whatever that system is, which is wonderful. And then the other side is there's not going to be human generated anything anymore. Like everything is going to be, artificially generated out of AI. And then the rest that remains is curation. But I think we're going to figure that out with AI anyway, either way as well. So
that does sound a bit, I don't know if pessimistic is the right word, but so you do have this view of that in the coming years, like if we keep this trajectory, you can literally replace almost everything with AI, right?
I think so. I hope so, actually. But then, the like opposing views of like, this is wonderful, the best thing that's ever happened. And this is like the next great unlock for humanity since the Industrial Revolution, and then, or the internet itself. And then the sadness of the change
Yeah.
and the what can come with that is pretty scary. And on the guild side, we are actually in-house. We have pretty big AI people in the team. So yeah, we've looked into things right now in the current state of how Guild is. It doesn't fit, but like with later features, some AI will fit into that in the picture as well. But I can't say more.
Fair enough. I was kind of wondering, obviously you're very busy in Web3 and you're all the time building, but what are kind of your guilty pleasures when it comes to Web3? What makes Rika mad, happy? What does she like to do when she's like not working on guilds? DeFi, gaming, running. What are your kind of hobbies to kind of?
My favorite thing to like be mad about and also like experiment all the time is involving the like simplicity of being a creator and like social presence itself.
That's a big
Like,
topic. That's a huge
it is.
topic.
I know, but it's like that's my hobby and free time. And it also, everything I do kind of ties into guild because eventually the thoughts that come out of this also go into there. But when Yup came, I was the biggest pet peeve was the cross posting. We have like 6 different social networks right now. How am I going to build a presence in all of them? It's horrifying. And most of them require you to actually engage there as well to like feed their own algorithms and their networks and everything. So that takes 1 gazillion million years, or you make a choice and you make the wrong one and you, damn. But so cross posting of like you have a single source where you post. So if it's like a tweet, like small post, you could post them from to all of them, and it makes it my life so much easier to not have to copy paste all of that. So I was super excited when Yup, the team came out with cross posting to Farcaster, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Lens at the same time. You can do all of those from their app, which is super exciting. There's of course a lot of complications with like video and everything, but good experiment, good step in the right direction. So thinking about this and experimenting with different solutions is my big free time fun.
What are your thoughts on the creator economy as a whole? We have lots of different approaches in the space. If you look at Legion's approach, like psychology, creator economy, and if you look at, for example, Meta Label, we had on the podcast Yancey Strickler recently with Scott Moore, and they were talking about how the creator economy was not necessarily the best term. You should think it more in terms of ecosystems and really about nurturing the creator. And when you're saying already creator economy, you're already thinking in terms of like monetary values, which is not necessarily what a creator is always there for, right? So what are your takes in general? Are you just excited about the potential of just improving lives for creators, or you see a creator economy, you have your own definition because everyone has their take, right?
Yeah, I don't like the term either. I never knew what the economy was a pet peeve, but I don't know what we should replace it with. And I just heard, I'm a big TikTok girly, and I try to curate my algorithm so that it's actually pretty educational. So I just saw a lady talking about the creator economy in an absolutely not Web3 way. So this doesn't come from us, which was a surprise to me. It's a normal term, but I also agree that we should drop the economy part, although that's a pretty big value add from the Web3 side is the economy side of this. In my opinion, we shouldn't neglect the Web2 solutions as much as we do. But actually, I have no idea how to answer this question. Like, what do I think? I feel like there's many things missing, and I can go back to my previous thing of that's my free time activity. It's like just digesting so much research and trying gazillion amount of tooling to find things that actually make this more fun and appealing and easy and take less of the time load. Because we did have the chaos experiment with my friend LDF, and part of that was us experimenting of trying to optimize the creator output, or like when you have ideas and you want to put things out in the world, how do you make it the more efficient thing to produce that content and distribute it and also have it stored well so that it's retrievable, not disappears. Like it disappears in Twitter. You just put it in the slot machine and it disappears into eternity. And like, how do you actually make it so that it has longevity? And all of those questions are actually pretty unanswered. There's a few solutions. They're not great and they don't work really well together. So I have like bullet points of things that I want people to build. I can share that later if you'd like.
Sure. I mean, I guess just to finish up on this question, I won't make you reveal all your secrets, but yeah, when you look at, if you use the term creator economy or what you're passionate about, like what are the things that you're thinking, oh my God, like why aren't we building this? Like I'm too busy with Guild, but it's so obvious that we're missing these kinds of things. And why is everyone focused on that specific thing in tech, which might be cool, but we're missing these huge blocks. Like, you just like discuss with friends, with other communities about this, or just you keep it to yourself and you're just like frustrated reading this and thinking, my God, we're missing this?
I usually rant and vent with friends. Like, that's the coping mechanism, that we get together either by text in like communities or like in calls or in person, and we just vent that this needs to be built. But I think the most valuable thing is we actually make lists and requests and sometimes tweet about it or be more public about it. But those lists, I think, are going to come really handy when we are looking to build the next big thing or like new features, and we need to think about more. I think a lot of the creator things actually work really well with community building itself already. Like, that's a really big overlap between the two. So yeah, I just keep the list and vent with friends, and that's so far how it is, and we'll see. And whenever friends come to me that they like need ideas or they want to fund something or start their own thing, they just left like a big, nice, squishy job and they want to do something else, I'm like, do one of these, please, and I'll help with some of my time and input. But
Awesome. Do you have any final thoughts, any questions that you would have liked me to ask? Usually we ask like, recently, do you have any shout out or something that inspired you lately, either an individual, a post, an article, any final thoughts?
We had a season, so like 12 weeks of journal club in the Guild community, which was just like us curating articles from the like most recent months, actually always that month. And we actually go through them together, which is great because I always just roll as like a light 30-minute event every week. We have which article comes this week and we just go through it alone and then talk about it together. And like most of the time we also invited the person who wrote the article. And it was great because I always just elongate my reading lists and never go through them because, life happens. And so the accountability was wonderful. And one of the articles was speaking about, it was actually by Rafa, the builder. It was speaking about content becoming like a new layer, almost like an L1. And I really, really like that idea. And we had conversations with him about this afterwards. But I think that's a really good way of thinking of content and the content stored as a form of like source. That's the source of truth for where content is. And then you just think about ways how you distribute it elsewhere. So that piece was really inspiring to me. And obviously what Rafa's writing most of the time is pretty good. So check him out if you haven't yet. Yeah, that's the shout out I have today.
Great. Thank you so much, Réka, for being part of today's episode. Links for Guild and for Réka will be in the description. As for us, if you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our socials on Twitter, NEWFORUM_NCO. And likes, shares, or subscribes are very much appreciated. Thank you once again, Réka, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.